2, 1, we are live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Here we is.
Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah.
With the new Canadian anthem.
Yeah, the theme's anthem's really not quite like Doc Severin's. It's just really yeah.
Our budget's relatively cheap here, so whatever David can get us for free is what we take. So, but he does good. He does good. So we like what he does for us. So that's very good. So how you been?
Good. It's been a good spring so far. Yeah, we're moving along and got
nice.
Another
and no green halo behind you anymore or anything. So look at that. No green halo behind you.
I got some decent lighting.
There you go.
I'm off site today, and I've got actually decent lighting. So it's
all right. Good to know.
I don't have that green ghost. I'm gonna have to address that issue somewhere down
there
the road.
You go. Well, today we have somebody very cool. I've looked at her work. And I'm a big animal proponent. She doesn't paint animals, though. No, I'm just kidding. But I looked at her. A really good artist. I mean, I can draw a stick figure, but she can really she makes a stick figure look like an animal. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So. Well, we'll take a look at it. We're drawing kind of exotic animals, animals that are not typically in our neighborhood. They're sort of
like a native New Yorker would be an animal, not in your neighborhood.
Right, walking down the streets of New York.
Sure. There you go.
Seen that. I think I've seen that movie. Somewhere. Maybe it was Planet of the Apes. That's what
Planet of the Apes. That's true, right? That's right. I forgot it's coming out.
Anyway, we'll talk. We're going to talk to Laurel Best today and show us we're going to talk about how she prepares her surfaces a bit, as well as her watercolors. How to save some money, and how to ship safer your work. So it's a little bit of both. You're going to get some great work that she's starting and working on, and I guess how to save some money. I mean,
saving money is always a good thing.
Always. I mean, that's not only for the buyer, but also for the artist. How to preserve their watercolors and how to ship them, and how she does it anyway. And we'll just talk to her about this. There's a lesson everywhere. You can learn something all the time.
This is very exciting. We should probably bring her in, or we can just keep talking about her. It can go either way.
Just talk.
Just keep talking about her for the hour, and hey, thanks for being a guest.
We'll draw some figures of her, and we'll talk about her. Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Bring Laura in. Yeah.
There you go. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Enjoy and have a great interview. I'll see you guys at the end.
Wow. Good day to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
I see some pictures behind you, so people can sort of see a little bit of some of the stuff that you do behind the scenes. There you go.
Yeah.
And we'll bring images up here as we move along here. But so you love doing watercolors of wildlife. I guess we'll call it this. Is that the right terminology? Wildlife?
Yeah. I like to call the exotic animals plus some others wild things. They're wildlife, but wild things is just a name I've given to the collection. And I really enjoy finding things in nature. I went on a safari, so I'm actually seeing I've seen some of these exotic animals now, which really makes things a lot more personal and exciting for me now that I've done that.
So do you feel like these are kind of like portraits a little bit? They're almost animal portraits?
Yeah. I like to get in really close to the face and see the eyes. I really focus on the eyes of the animal, and it feels like you're up close and personal with the animals.
Yeah. So if you saw a pride of lions, then you could say that you could tell them apart, like really, like this one's name is Joe and that one's Henry and whatever their names are, right? Or are they just sort of like a generic? They look like lions, or have they come to a point where you could, if you did a portrait of a lion that was in one of the game reserves or something, would one of the other guides know who that lion was?
Possibly. I haven't tested that out, but
Yeah. Well, I'm just asking because a lot of times I find animal portraits, mostly domestic, like cats and dogs. They'll say, "Well, yeah, that looks like a Sheltie, but that doesn't look like my Sheltie. You know, that
yeah,
doesn't look like my horse.
I do
It looks like
lots of pet
yeah,
portraits, and they do look like the animals that they're supposed to be.
yeah." So you do
Yeah,
them as well. You do pet portraits as well,
yeah, lots of
as
dogs, cats.
as commissions and that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
working
Oh,
on one right
excellent.
now.
Well, that's good for people to know that you
Yeah,
do more than just exotics. They'll have to send you off to Africa so you can get some reference material and come back. So can
yeah.
you tell us a little bit about that journey? I guess I'm gonna have Stephen bring up the first image and then we'll go
Okay.
from there and we can just talk about your journey. And there we go. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about how your safaris come together. Like where, how did that opportunity happen?
Well, I started painting exotic animals a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine saw the paintings, and she was planning a trip to Africa and asked if I wanted to come along. And
Wow.
I said yes. And last year we went, and it was absolutely incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah. No, it's well, as is some of your work. I mean, this is the first slide that I brought up here of the zebra, and I was quite taken by this one. It's just I think it's the the abstract nature of the um, of his of this black and white. I think not full of color, but there's this, and all of a sudden there's this eye, and right
Yeah.
away you know what it is, but it's a close up of the animal, and I love that feeling. There's kind of a freedom feeling with it a little bit with those lines because they're not straight. They're kind of organic as they kind of just move about onto the flesh of the animal. So can you tell me about a little bit about, I mean, you talked about the eye, and I can see how that becomes really quite important.
Yes. The nature of watercolor, you have to be very careful when you're using a dark color like this really dark gray, black color, because once it gets on the paper, it can't fully come off. So the eye is the most important part because just like when we're looking at humans, we look to their eyes first. So with animals, you look to the eye first. So I have to make sure that that is as best as it can be. So I will practice the eye 5 or 6 times on practice paper before I go to my good watercolor paper. I
Yeah.
practice techniques, I practice colors, and I make sure I know exactly what I'm going to do on my good piece of watercolor paper before I commit.
Yeah. So I see a little bit of wet into wet in the forehead there a little bit. You kind of the paper's a little damp. So all those things are kind of planned. Is that am I correct?
Yes, yes. So the wet into wet gives it a fuzzy kind of a feel on the edges. And up close there, where you're seeing the very front of the zebra head, you are seeing more of the details. So it's going to look a little fuzzier up close. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Well,
is
yeah, it
planned.
does give a feeling of hair a little bit rather than just a graphic line on a
Yeah.
white surface or surface like that. So it feels quite nice. Well, we're moving you around from animals into birds and a few things here. So yeah.
Yeah. So
Parrots are always interesting. I mean, they always have that comical look about them. They have us like they're smiling all the time. The parrot. Uh, he's
they're a
very
very
inquisitive.
fun bird.
Yeah, they are. Um, and colorations. I mean, they come in a huge variety of colors you would never even think that they put together for a bird.
Yeah, that's what makes them fun to paint. Since I paint animals, I use a lot of neutral kind of colors, and so it's always exciting for me to get out other colors and play with those.
Yeah. So your backgrounds tend to be fairly plain. Is that to make the image kind of just central or focused on the portrait or on the animal? Is that initially what
Yeah,
the intention is?
yeah. When I'm doing pet portraits, for example, if it's a dark, a black dog, then I'll keep the background white. Uh, but if the subject needs it, then I will put in a background. I tend to be putting more backgrounds in these days.
So do those backgrounds kind of relate to the animal or bird that you're working on? So in other words, you put them into location as to where they're, where they are?
Yeah, I don't get into detail too much.
Yeah.
The leopard painting coming up was the tree that leopard was on in Africa. So I take bits of the background, their surroundings when I can. But I tend to focus on the animal and I try to make that pop.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see, like it becomes you have to make a decision about what it's about, really, when you're doing a painting. Is it really about the animal? Is it about the background? Or is it about the environment that animal's in? So do you take on any kind of, do you have any kind of environmental mantra at all that save the animal, save the whale, save the lion kind of thing? Are you part of anything like that?
I'm going to join the Toronto Zoo Guardians of the Wild program. They have programs for orangutans, coastal birds in South Africa. So it looks like a very good program. So I'm going to donate part of my earnings of painting sales to that cause.
Well, it's good. It's good to have a cause that I think that's important to you. Like, I think that's the most important thing. It's you find something that complements what you believe in, and if you can use your art for it, then all the better. If that's what you want to do, I think it's a good way of also finding, and I'll say this, a market a little bit, because you usually are with people of like mind.
Right.
So marketing is really kind of an important thing when you're working with things. And I think you're smart doing that. I think it's trying to find those affiliates that can offer something that for your business as an artist as well, right? So if you can find people that are wanting of certain animals, and they're, you say, well, maybe I've got a painting, or if they buy that painting, then like you said, some of that funds goes to the organization that they're a member of as well. So it's a win-win, really, when it comes down to that.
Yeah.
And it's it's really hard to find some of these so-called exotic animals when you live in Canada. I mean, we do have our own exotics. If you flip it around the other way, if you're in Africa and they see polar bear, that's pretty exotic. I mean,
True.
really. Or a whale, that's quite exotic. They don't see a lot of those things. So, and we have animals they don't have, but typically, unless we start moving them around, and we do. Here's Mr. Toucan. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
They
this
always want to put those guys on Fruit Loops. They just always, they're always a fun-looking bird.
I had a toucan sit on my shoulder when I was in Mexico. Wow. And they're quite a light bird. It's surprising.
Yeah. They're all feathers.
Yeah, very
sort
light.
A magpie is like that too. Magpie just puffs up, and they're all feathers. They're just they're annoying, and you can't get rid of them. But they're just a big puff of feathers. And I know I tried to get rid of them as a kid, and you could never get rid of them.
Yeah, we don't have them in Central Ontario.
You don't have magpies?
No. I think it's more of a Western thing. Yeah.
Because that's all part of that corvid family, the crow, raven, and magpie. Even the blue jay is part of that one as well. So it's kind of I didn't know that. I didn't know the magpies were not in Ontario. I did live in Ontario, but I wasn't aware of birds when I was there. I was of that nature, and I was a little younger, I guess. So was this bird in Africa, or was this one in Mexico? This one?
So this one, actually, I was setting up a collection of wild things to get into the one of a kind show in Toronto. And I was also getting into these magazines called United Colors of Design, and they were having a yellow edition. So I thought, okay, what can I paint that has yellow and is also a wild thing? So that's how I decided to paint this guy, and I've always wanted to paint him. So he did get into the magazine, so that was nice. And also was one of the pictures I submitted, and I did get into the spring one of a kind show last year. So that was very exciting as well.
Yeah. No. So you can then actually, you're painting to a market then. You've the ability to paint to a market. So you're looking for a goal. You set your goal, and then you source your material and you produce a piece of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a challenge in itself for a lot of artists. A lot of artists say, no, I paint what I paint. If you like it, I like it. And they don't necessarily want to. Maybe they have the ability, but maybe don't want to go down that road where but when you want to get into a magazine and you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way of doing it. I think that's important, is to understand that there's different ways of doing things all the time. And there's no one right way or wrong way. If you've got goals to be exposed in a magazine or certain things, and you want to have those issues, sometimes you have to jump through their fire hoops that they want. I'll call them, yeah. And you're also competing as well with a lot of other people for that same page. So good on you to be able to, get that kind of presence on there.
Thank you.
Yeah. This guy, he's a little soft, cuddly guy. But I wouldn't cuddle too much with him. He's got a little bit of a nip, this boy. You definitely can see the eyes, and the eyes really draw you in. There's
Good. Yes.
I've been looking at this one a little bit more than we go through these things initially, and I've looked at the pictures a number of times so I can see what I want to talk about in them. But and initially I thought it was a little on the soft, light side, but now I'm feeling that it's actually quite there's a mysterious edge about this one. He's really thinking hard. So I really like this, and I like it full frame like it is. It's bleeding off, and you don't have to show his legs and his arms, his paws and his tail too much. The focus is a portrait. It really is it really is a portrait. And doing portraits in watercolor is a challenge. There's no backing up once you put that color on the page, where in oils and acrylic you can build up and move around and push things around and adjust. But so do you kind of do a light line drawing of the how do you do scaling? Do you scale the animal up, or do you project?
I use a scaling method. So whatever photograph I'm using as a reference, I'll add a grid to it using a hashtag grid program. So that pops it right on for me, and I have it on my iPad, and then I scale up just a sketchbook piece of paper, and using the grid, I sketch it out. And once I'm happy with the drawing, then I transfer it to my watercolor paper with graphite paper. So there's a brand, sometimes I use this, Laurel.
Okay.
You have to watch for wax free. Sometimes art stores will sell transfer paper with wax in it, and wax repels watercolor, so that doesn't work out well at all.
No, it's a resist for sure.
Yeah.
So is there certain types of watercolor that you like better than others?
I mostly use Winsor & Newton watercolors. I do have some other QOR and various other kinds, but I started with Winsor & Newton, and it still forms the majority. But I use the artist quality. I find using the artist quality gives your best results. And I also use the best watercolor paper too. I'll practice on a cheaper paper sometimes, but the sheet 20 by 30, 22 by 30 sheet is around $10, a little bit more sometimes, but it's well worth it because, you talked about not being able to take color off. Well, some colors you can lift a bit, and if you have good paper, you can sort of scrub into them and remove some paint without destroying your paper. So I find the good quality paper worthwhile.
Yeah, and brushes as well. I think a good, even if you only have 3 good brushes, a good round, a good flat, and a small, you can produce a nice body of work, especially, well, and then you have to really be serious when you get up into full sheet. There's you might need some other tools to, get your pigment on there in an even manner, larger flat brush, for instance, or something like that, or a hack. I tend to use a hacky brush or hockey brush, Japanese hockey. But I haven't done a watercolor for a while, though. It's just kind of get rusty after a while. But every once in a while, I did my sketchbook kind of thing, smaller pieces. But
yeah,
I've avoided the really large pieces, and I know you do some larger ones. Can you tell us a little bit how do you mount them and finish them? So do you stretch all your watercolor paper, or what do you do?
yeah. So if I usually use 140-pound cold press Arches paper, and I'll soak it for 2 minutes, and then I'll either put it on a 3/4 inch board, or and I used gum tape with that, or I'll staple it to a watercolor art board and then let it dry overnight. And the soaking stretches those cotton fibers. And when you attach it with either the tape or the staples, it'll dry, but it'll become quite taut. And it's a great surface to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a story. I was in college and I had to have stretch a bunch of watercolor paper. So I decided to go my wife and I are in our apartment, and so I go to the bathtub, and I run some water in the bathtub, and I got my watercolor paper in there, and I've got some old soup cans that I had that with water in
Holding it down.
to hold everything down. And I go back, and then I stretch the watercolor paper, and I go to school, go to college the next day, and I'm trying to use this watercolor, and the watercolor won't stick to the paper. I can't figure out what's going on. Here, my wife had had an oil bath the night before.
Oh, no.
So there was still residue in the tub, and it was just frustrating. Like, you're trying to put a wash down, it wouldn't stick, and it would run here, and like, yeah. And the other thing that happened is the cans had kind of rusted a bit overnight, and
Oh,
they'd left
no.
brown circles on my paper. I learned a lot that night, to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there's always fun things to learn about. Make sure your surfaces are clean when you go to soak paper,
Yes.
and it's fun. Anyway, another one. He's like, again, like it's the predecessor. Now this being a tiger. What was sorry? We didn't get into. This is this
That's
a lion?
lioness.
A lioness.
Yes.
Okay. And she's usually the tougher of the two, isn't she?
Yeah, in Africa, we saw a lioness go after 2 antelope, and luckily she didn't catch them because they both ran separate ways, but they're just amazing to watch.
Yeah. Well, I suppose when I heard the guy backs off when she gets upset. That's what I heard. Anyway, there's the tiger.
Yes.
Now, are tigers more? Are they? I
They're
guess
more-
they are in Africa, but
They're not African, no.
they're not. They're
No,
more.
they're India. There's tigers in India.
So,
It was the year of the tiger last year in the Chinese astrology.
mhm.
They have their lunar
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I love the tiger. It's such a beautiful animal, and yeah. So I don't have my own reference photos of this, except for zoo photos, I guess. But
So what do you use for reference then? How do you acquire these, or the rights
yeah.
to use, or?
So before I went on the Africa trip, because now I have thousands of references. But if it's an animal like this that I haven't seen in the wild, I'll look through royalty-free photos. If I can't find anything there, because I look at these things on the internet, they'll pop up in my feed. So I'll find photographers that take pictures. So I'll approach them and ask them if I can use their photo as a reference. And sometimes I'll pay them a small fee. They'll ask for a small fee, and I'll pay it so that I can get their photo to use as a reference.
Yeah, no, it's good to understand that there's so much stuff that is being lifted, I guess is the the word. I mean, if you're an artist respecting another artist, I think that's a lot of what this is, or working in a collaborative way. In other words, you may use it, but give them credits as to the image was used by so and so, the photographer, right? At least you give back to where you found the image. I think it's important with all the way the internet is going and things are happening right now. I think the artists have to stick together a little bit and help each other a bit more. I think it's important. This guy, can you tell us a little bit about this guy and the painting of him a little bit?
Well, the eyes are focus. Once again, the secondary focus is the nose. So basically, if I spend a lot of time on those two parts, I also practice my technique for the stripes. I'm using wet into wet here, and it helps make it look fuzzy. And it also helps if I work on that painting. Once I get my technique going, I have to keep going. Like, I don't have to do the whole painting in the day, obviously, but I don't want to leave it for weeks and then come back, or I feel like I'm starting at square one again. So it's nice to work on it each day and until I get it finished, kind of thing.
You get a rhythm on there. So did you use a maskoid for the whiskers at all, or what do you use?
Do. So the person that taught me watercolor years ago, she didn't like us using masking fluid. She considered it cheating. So some of my initial paintings, I painted around those whiskers. But in my mind, I essentially paint with the masking fluid. I just consider it another painting. So yes, I do paint in those whiskers with masking fluid, and I practice to get them really thin. And it's just part of the painting, even though I remove it in the end, but I consider it to be painting with masking fluid.
I've known artists as well that would use a very sharp object to scratch in at the tail end of the piece of wood after it's dry, but that only works on a certain surfaces of paper. But I think it legitimizes the use of fluids for certain things. I know some artists use excessive amounts of them, but when you want to wash in a nice clean background and you don't want to have to paint around and give a lot of that stop and start look to your painting, which it will, you've got to really have a skill to keep it wet, keep that edge wet all the time and keep moving it. And and it is an arduous task to try to paint around hairs like that, for sure. But I think they look good though. The whiskers they don't look out of sorts. So it's kind of nice. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Here's Mama and the young colt. Would they be a colt? What would they call a young zebra?
It might be a colt. I can't think of it offhand here. But I saw lots of these in Africa. I painted this one, years before I went to Africa, but I just love this animal. It's and Africa made me realize that it's a really friendly animal as well. We saw a hyena go after a wildebeest, and a zebra came up and chased the hyena away. So I have even more love for the zebra.
It's tough to put them into. I mean, you've chosen a young one with his mother and trying to give it a background and things. I really like that first one where there's close up, but that's a personal thing. Right. And they're just trying to give the animal, when you're painting these lines that converge and move and are one in front of the other, yet you still have to depict the two animals apart, right? The young one and the mom. And all you're seeing is black and white lines that are squiggling, right? And you've got to differentiate them so you can tell there's a young one in front of the one in the background, and they're like wallpaper. They belong together a little bit. If you got to separate them somehow so you can tell where they are.
Yeah.
It's just kind of No, it's fun. It's nice to see. I guess I'll call it family. It's nice to see animals treat each other well and help each other and take care of their young.
Yeah.
So usually in these ones, the male is not around. There's mostly the mother and the young one. But I've never been to Africa, so we actually in Saskatoon we just have 3 zebras who are now part of our permanent zoo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they unfortunately were inappropriately brought to Canada for some reason. I don't know how they got the exotics into Canada from somewhere.
Oh.
And so they were taken away from them, and now they're in a protected zoo area. But there's people that are trading in animals, which kind of bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
Now there's the other type of horse. There's the horse and the zebra.
Yeah.
So where were these ones?
So these are wild horses. This was inspired by my love of the show Yellowstone. I don't know if you've watched Yellowstone, but they have wild horses in Montana, and just the show had a ton of horses, and they're just so beautiful. So that's what inspired this painting.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few wild horses in Alberta as well.
Have you seen them?
No, they're out by Calgary somewhere south of Calgary. But you can do research on some of that. They're trying to protect them, and I don't know. I know one artist that is quite an advocate for them, for those actual specific wild horses. But I don't know. I don't know what's happening. They're trying to round stuff up, and I don't know the whole issue with it. But there's less and less of them.
Yeah.
But I think it's. Is there something you want to talk about specifically on these 3? It's really hard. Sorry, it's really hard. This animal is not really. He's looking at you, but he's not looking at you, right?
Yeah.
They've got one eye each on these horses, and they're concentrating in one other area. All 3 of them. Yet if you were there, they for sure see you. It's one of those things.
Yeah, I enjoyed painting them in 3 different shades, 3 different colors. And I did the hair in sort of a more loose way, and I think it works here. But,
and you kind of painted around that too on those ones.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference between that whisker on the tiger, the different textures you get by the way you paint the medium.
Yeah.
But it still feels like the wind is blowing in their hair a little bit.
Well, they're going every which way.
Yeah. Wild hair, wild things, wild hair.
Yeah.
Maybe it's first thing in the morning. I don't know. Yeah. So this one is a cheetah, correct?
No, that's a leopard.
That's a leopard. Okay.
Yeah, and I call this one Spotted at the Zanzibar. And ironically, I named it that because I wanted to include spotted in the name, and I thought spotted at a bar might be kind of fun. And there's the Zanzibar bar in Toronto, and Zanzibar is also an exotic island off of Africa. And then I went to Zanzibar, and lo and behold, there was only monkeys there, nothing bigger than that. But I just listened to a podcast, and they thought the Zanzibar leopard was extinct, but it's not. They found one. So now my title makes total sense.
Wow. The things we learn when we do a little hunting for it.
Yeah.
It's again, I love how these, the spots go on and off the page, and they're like circular. They're all connected a little bit, and they have a rhythm, and it sits underneath his chin a little bit, or her chin, maybe. Not sure, but definitely the eyes are that soft green. Yeah, just kind of I think when you see them up close, you're kind of learning a little bit. So now this was from a photographer, correct? This one?
This one was a royalty-free photo, actually.
Okay.
There's one coming up that I bought from a photographer, and then there's another one that is my own photo. So there's kind of 3 different versions of leopards. I love the leopard, as you can tell. I was so happy to see it in Africa and live. It was amazing.
And I think it would be very difficult to get these kinds of shots on your own. I mean, you just don't get this with your phone. You have to sit and wait for many, many hours to be the right place at the right time for this to happen, unless you're the food. If you're the food, then you get
this could be just before
quickly.
you, this could be your last photo.
Well, I know, people are thinking that might sound a little funny, but they're looking at how to find reference material of some exotics, mostly North American exotics. A place to go is Cabela's. If you go to Cabela's sports store, they have a lot of, I guess they're stuffed, but they're things from mountain sheep to bear to beaver to everything. So you could actually go into the store and take photos, ask them, take photos of their stuffed animals, and it's quite a collection. My grandkids call that going to the zoo. So we used to go and they could get up close, very close to some of the animals and see what they're like and see how big they were. But it's always tough trying to find good reference, and I advise that, if you're looking for right shape, size of something, you can go to that's actually one of the good stores to go to for that kind of thing. Yeah, well, here we go. Here he is.
Okay, this is one that I purchased from a photographer, the reference photo. So this is I call it On the Prowl. And it was a gorgeous photo, and I asked her if I could use it, and she just wanted a small fee. So I paid it and painted it, and I brought it to the One of a Kind, and I'm happy to say I sold it. So
excellent. Yeah. Well, he's got nice rhythms. You can see him walking, because the tree is kind of gnarly, right? So his back legs are behind, so it's not just one big branch he's crawling on. So he's going up and over things. It's got a nice rhythm to the piece in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's kind of soft colored. I mean, I think these things kind of mask themselves a little bit into the environment anyway, don't they? They kind of
they can be hard to see.
Yeah. So I think that that probably is some of the issues with taking photos of things as well, is trying to be able to pick them out at the right time quickly and adjust to get the right reference material that you're using, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an artist can make things darker and lighter and push things around, but it's a little bit more difficult when you're shooting on the fly.
Yeah.
But
I brought my dad's big zoom lens to Africa with me, but sometimes the animals were so close, I had to switch to my phone because they were too close to us. So
they're probably pretty used to people taking photos of them.
Yeah, they're used to the trucks. Yeah,
all the time, and I think they adapt to a lot of things that are affecting them in their environment as well. So they're not afraid as much as they used to be, probably.
Yeah.
And you just don't want to start feeding them, and then things happen. So, but we have the same problem in Canada, where they were doing that with polar bear watching, for instance, and you just stay in the vehicle. You don't get out.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you are food, just like everything else.
Yeah.
No, this is lovely. I love the spots in this one. I mean, he's there. He's a different texture than the background, and but he's very softly there. He's not like right in your face big.
Yeah.
There's somebody right in there. He's looking up a little bit at me. He's not looking at me. He's looking up a little bit. He's had a crazy day. His mane, and they're always, those male manes are just crazy wild, I think, are they not?
Yeah, they're and interestingly, they sleep at the bottom base of the tree, and the lionesses all sleep within a tree. Like when they're not hunting, that's what they tend to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but the mane really does kind of frame his face,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it always quite crazy.
So yeah, I focused
I've
on.
seen him in zoos, but I've never been to Africa, like I said to
Yeah, you got to go someday. It's fabulous.
yeah, it's beautiful.
So this one is from my own reference photo. So this leopard was crawling down the tree. It had a dead wildebeest hanging on the left side of the tree. So its lunch was hanging there. And yeah, it was, when I see this, it just brings me back to that moment in time. And just incredible to see this amazing animal up close.
Right.
Yeah.
On the prowl. So were you shooting from a vehicle?
Yes. Yeah, we were in a Range Rover that has the roof that lifts up. So shooting through that, yeah.
Okay.
And this was one of the shots that I painted from.
How many people would be on a safari? Like for
There
this
was 6 of us in the driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's so okay. No, I'm
And
just
this was the tree that it was in. I moved some of the branches around. The branch in front of this leopard is kind of mimicking his shape a little bit. So that was a choice I made. And
so you move objects around.
yeah, so in the sketching
image.
phase, like this is actually a full sheet, 30 by 22.
Right.
So I have a 30 by 22 piece of paper as well that I sketch on. And in that step, I decide, okay, how do I want the branches to go? And because in watercolor, once you decide where things are, it's really hard to change things around. So you do a lot of planning first.
So how do you finally present these pieces of work? Like, how are they actually finished? Do you frame them and glaze them? Are they with glass and done that way, or
a lot of the portraits I've put in glass, but I've recently started to mount them on cradled wood, and I use a matte medium to attach them to the cradled wood, and I spray them with acrylic UV spray, and then once I attach it, I protect it with Dorland's wax medium. So there's a couple layers I put on top to protect them, because without the glass, you have to worry about water and, just they're not protected without the glass. So you have to really make sure you do that step well.
Yeah, that and the wax would be a nice resist for anything that,
Yeah.
people look at the, well, they say, well, the surface might get scratched or something. So, well, a painting surface could get scratched, an acrylic painting or an oil painting on canvas can get the same problem. So really, paper's been around for many, many, many centuries, thousands of years. So they've been using it as a surface. It's only this last few hundred years we've been trying to put glass in front of all watercolors. So the UV would help keep the colors rich, and it wouldn't be fading as much. I still would probably advise not putting them in direct sunlight. Any kind of painting, but I can see there'd be some savings, I guess, for people that could mount their work on cradle panel.
Yeah, so I offer that with my pet portraits. Instead of them buying a frame, I offer putting it on cradled wood, and more people are choosing that option.
Yeah, and what are they, 2-inch panels?
2-inch. I've got, or an inch and a half.
Inch and a half, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, just show that again. Yeah. So you do more things than animals.
Yeah, I like
wild flowers.
Well, yeah.
Other kinds of wild things. Beautiful flowers too.
Thank you.
We're just kind of concentrating on the animals today, but we can always come back to other things as well when we do things. No, it's nice to see that so people can actually see what they're doing. Whether I guess buyers could maybe request that from from you right from the beginning, right? If they have a portrait or something done for their dog or something, you can suggest that as a way.
Do you want to see one I'm working on right now?
Sure. It's lovely. Oh, isn't he? Little. Is that a Shih Tzu?
No, it's a Havanese.
Okay. They all look the same. Yeah. Nice. No, it's
So these giraffe I saw in the wild, and while I was taking their photo, I was waiting for them to all line up because I thought that would be cool to have them all in a row, and I was rewarded because they all lined up like
they
this.
all lined up 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, drawing something with such a long neck, it's really difficult. I mean, you typically want to do something on a vertical piece of paper, and it's a challenge to horizontally put them on a. Now, is this a full sheet as well?
No, this one's 11 by 14.
Okay, so it's a quarter sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, it gives you a feeling. I mean, these are a large animal, and you're trying to feel the scale of them. I've only seen them in a zoo again as well, and they're big.
They are.
They're very, very small. Yeah, but it's a strange animal. That's
it's amazing the acacia trees in the back. We sat and watched them for about 10 minutes eating off the acacia trees, and the acacia trees have thorns all over them. So how they get at the leaves without piercing their tongues, I don't know, but it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, they have a fairly long tongue, I think.
Yeah, but still, there's thorns in amongst those leaves. I don't know how they don't hurt their tongues.
So what else is that typically what they eat?
Yeah.
That's it. Pretty well.
Yeah.
From leaves off trees.
The acacia tree, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought maybe they'd be, I've seen them in the zoo, and I guess they'd have to ship them in the leaves, like.
Well, I guess they probably have other.
I'm sure they have to have a different diet, for them. But
yeah,
it's well, there we go. I went back to this shot because I really like this one, and I'd love to see more work of yours that are like these. They feel really. They draw you in, and they're really powerful pieces of work. And I think you've got a nice body of work that is coming along beautifully. And I do encourage people to look at your website. You do other things other than animals, and you do animal portraits as well. So
yeah,
we encourage people to follow you a little bit on your social media as well. They can get a hold of you through your website.
Yes, and, Instagram, Laurel Best Art.
And I screwed up your website. I have an extra slash in front of your name. That's not going to work very good, but maybe Stephen can fix that up. Have to be careful.
No, I can't fix it, but I can put the correct website below.
That's the
so
one.
Everybody can click the link below, and they can find Laurel's site. Laurel, absolutely gorgeous. I was born year of the tiger, so if somebody wants to buy, so I was like that, and the zebra. But if somebody wants to buy your work, what are the ranges? What's the price range for somebody to buy it?
The framed 8x10s are $330, and then it goes up to $1,200.
Okay, so 330, 1,200 Canadian. So everybody in the United States, $6. In the EU, basically free. You pay for shipping. So there you go. So very nice. No, the stuff is absolutely beautiful. So
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I think that'll be it. We'll have
That's it. We're done. That was painless.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She's like, oh, thank God.
So, I can relax now.
Yeah, you can relax. So, well, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next Thursday. If you want to get a hold of Laurel and you can't figure it out because Paul screwed it up, no, I'm just kidding. Her website will be below if you have to email the show, and we will get you in touch with her, and you can buy a tiger or a lion or oh my, and then we will go from there.
Or order your own
pet or order your own pet.
Pet portrait, yeah.
Online.
Pet portrait she does as well. So
Yeah.
take a look at her site for sure.
Now, is the tiger and the zebra both available, or did they sell?
The zebra sold, but the
course it
tiger's just up there, back there.
Oh, wait, there he is, right there. I see him. Hold
Yeah.
on, I have to do whatchamacallit, a solo. There it is, right there behind you.
Yeah, here, I'll bring it
So
down.
somebody, here we go. I like that.
Tiger on the shelf. There he is.
There you go. Oh, look how pretty. Now, you see, that's pretty tiger.
Yeah.
That's very nice. And so that tiger in Canadian, that funny money, how much is the tiger?
500.
That's not bad. So all you people that like tigers or Year of the Tiger, there you go.
$500 framed. Wow.
Framed. And that doesn't, but then you pay for shipping, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Which isn't bad.
It's not bad. You know.
Yeah. You get a tiger. Nothing wrong with that. Very cool. Well, you're, like I said, magnificent. Come back, please, whenever. And you and Paul can figure that part out. But thank you so much for your time. And everybody, thank you for watching. And we'll see everybody next Thursday with whoever Paul surprises us with.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Laura.
Thanks
Laura.
very much, Paul and Stephen.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Take care.